So same-sex marriage is in the news again. California recently legalized it, and New York is getting set to recognize it as well. They're following the steps of nations like Canada that recognize it as an issue of equality, in other words, human rights. Ironically, one of the groups opposing this is called the New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedoms. As I guess that last comment implies, I'm quite in favor of this change. I've always thought that gay men and women are entitled to live just as normal a life as the rest of us, and always been disgusted when people try to oppress them. This is especially true when it comes from people claiming to be preaching the word of Jesus. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Jesus said, "Love thy neighbor," and to forgive so-called sinners. Honestly, if all we're talking about is two consenting, loving adults, I think they should be able to commit to each other in any way possible. I mean, even if some of my neighbors turn out to be gay, it doesn't affect me. So, what right do total strangers have in restricting decent people from getting married? And before anyone flings me by saying, not everyone opposed to gay marriage is a homophobe, spare your breath. I know that already. However, it certainly doesn't help when the lion's share of the opposition says things like, it's not a marriage, it's a bloody abomination, and compare people to stunted plagues, yet have the nerve to claim that they personally do not hate homosexuals. Besides, a lot of the arguments in favor of so-called traditional marriage don't really hold a lot of weight. Let's start with the view that is altering the definition and purpose of marriage as defined by most cultures and religions. The problem with that view is that the purpose of marriage has never been stacked to begin with. For the longest time, it was a glorified business deal. Heck, even these days, between a 50% divorce rate, infidelity everywhere, and marriages of convenience, it's not like traditional marriage has that much sanctity left. There's also the view that it will damage traditional family unions and lead to an increase in homosexual couples. Frankly, this is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. I really fail to see how existing hetero families will be affected by gay marriage at all, and the number of homosexual couples probably depends more on their natural inclinations than the views of society. It would just be nice if so many people weren't determined to keep them closeted. Then, of course, there are the biblical arguments that homosexuality destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, that is punished by death in Leviticus, etc. Leaving aside thou shalt not kill, a whole other argument. The problem with using the Bible as your main evidence is not only wide open to interpretation and self-contradictory on several occasions, but some of what's prohibited in there makes absolutely no sense by any standard. Leviticus also prohibits the wearing of mixed fabrics, but I don't see anyone doing that. So when fundamentalist Christians are willing to follow that to the letter, which includes slavery as well as animal sacrifice, then they can talk about heathens violating Scripture. Some argue that same-sex couples can achieve equality with civil unions, which is just bullshit. So is saying that homosexuals can just marry anyone of the opposite sex, and it wouldn't be discrimination. That is a very quiet, vaguely civilized form of bigotry. You can be with anyone you want, but you can't marry someone of your own sex. Finally, there are the arguments that are so preposterous I have to wonder sometimes if some of these people are brain damaged. It will lead to incestuous marriages. It will lead to people marrying animals. Use your fucking heads, people. Incest is already illegal in many places, and animals don't have legal standing.
You are the weakest link. Bye.
Leaving aside for a moment that in the United States everyone is supposed to be constitutionally equal, the thing that a lot of people seem to forget is that it is not a Christian nation. A lot of its citizens are Christian, but that's not the same thing. The government itself is supposed to be secular, serving all of its citizens regardless of creed or sexual orientation. So if any government in that supposedly free nation continues to persecute homosexuals, then people like Martin Luther King Jr. died for nothing. I have a dream too. I dream of a world where what you believe in and what gender you're attracted to doesn't matter, where we can simply live in peace. Enough said.